What's going on, everybody? Kalipus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be going over why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. Now, keep in mind, despite the things I'm going to be talking about in this video, this is definitely not a bad phone. In fact, I personally really like this phone, and I think that for what it is, it does provide a lot of value for the money. But that being said, I'm going to be going over some potential drawbacks for this phone, because like any device, it's not perfect, and it's definitely a good idea to really know what you're getting into before you actually buy it. Now, that being said, before we go any further, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, and if you want to learn more about this phone, I will be linking to several other videos about it in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So the first reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is the storage. Now with this phone, we're getting 64GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, and if you get the international version, you will be getting 128, but if you're in the US, pretty much any version of this phone you get through a carrier will only have 64. Now in my opinion, while 64GB is definitely not terrible, it's still not ideal in this day and age, with stuff like the system, apps, and just files in general getting larger and larger as time goes on. Sure, on one hand, if you're a really light user and you're not really doing a whole lot with your phone, then with 64GB you will at least get by. I mean, it's definitely better than 32. But if you're more of a power user, if you're doing a lot of mobile gaming for example, and you really just have a lot of stuff you like to put on your phone, then keep in mind 64GB will probably fill up pretty quickly. To give you an idea of what this kind of storage actually looks like, right now I really only have a few apps on my phone, just basic streaming services, social media, and a few mobile games, and as you can see, I'm already using 52% of the total storage. So really, I'm honestly not the biggest power user out there, so if you really do have a lot of apps, and you're doing a lot of mobile gaming and stuff like that, then despite this phone having great performance, and definitely being able to handle that kind of activity, unfortunately the storage is going to be a different story. So in general, on one hand, if you are more of a light user, and you're only doing basic activities like web browsing, social media, stuff like that, then you will get by with this phone. But if you are more of a power user, then I would definitely recommend either getting the international version of this phone, which again, does have 128GB, or getting something like the Samsung Galaxy A33 5G or the A53 5G that just has more storage in general. But of course, if you're not really that much of a power user when it comes to apps, but you have a lot of photos and videos and stuff like that, then keep in mind again, this phone does have microSD card expansion, and that's going to allow you to offload photos and videos and save you a lot of space. Now the second reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is the design. On one hand, the design in and of itself really isn't bad, but on the other hand, this design has been used in so many other phones, both Samsung and non-Samsung, that it really just looks like a generic low-end Android phone, despite it actually being a really good device. Now I know a lot of people out there, especially people considering a phone like this, most likely aren't too concerned with aesthetics. In fact, for that matter, I myself personally don't really even care either, since after all, I usually put a case on my phone anyway. But that being said, if you are looking for a phone that looks and feels a little bit more premium, then keep in mind, with the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G, despite this being a really good device for what it is, this is not going to be that phone. My third reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is the materials. Now similar to the design, it's not really bad per se, but the materials on this phone definitely do feel really cheap. It's basically plastic all the way around, and while the build quality, like the buttons and everything, do feel pretty sturdy, there's really not a whole lot of weight to it either. And yeah, on one hand, again, this is really to be expected with a phone in this price range, but even compared to other phones in this price range, like the Motorola Moto G stylus phones for example, the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G does feel quite a bit cheaper. So again, if you are looking for a phone in this price range, but you want it to feel a little bit more premium, then this phone is probably going to be a little disappointing. My fourth reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is because it doesn't have a screen recorder. Now I'm not sure how many people actually use this feature. I personally use it all the time, but if you don't really use it, then obviously this is probably not going to be a big deal. But that being said, it really just doesn't make sense to me that with a $300 5G phone that has features like NFC, we're not even getting a screen recorder. A screen recorder is not a very advanced feature, it's literally just a moving screenshot, and I've seen $30 track phones that have it, so it really makes no sense at all why an actual mid-range 5G Samsung phone wouldn't have a screen recorder. So if that is a feature you use a lot, definitely keep this in mind. My fifth reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is because it doesn't have wireless charging. Now this is one that's really to be expected in a phone like this. There's no Samsung Galaxy A series phone that actually has wireless charging, and for that matter, wireless charging for whatever reason is a feature very few phones that aren't flagship phones have. So in general, when you're getting a phone like this, you can pretty much expect it's not going to have that feature, and if it does, it's definitely a more unique option. But that being said, wireless charging definitely does have a lot of nice uses, and there are phones in this price range and even below it that do have the feature, like for example the Cricket Dream 5G or the Visible Midnight, and even some phones made by Blue. So the point is, even though it's not really surprising that this phone doesn't have wireless charging, if you really do want that feature, there are still several options out there around this price range that do have it. Now the sixth reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is because the video quality maxes out at 1080p. Now this may or may not be an important thing for a lot of people, but when you're recording videos, especially if you're doing more serious content creation, like vlogging for example, where you want to get the best resolution possible, it is a bit of a bummer to not be able to record in 4K, and unfortunately with this phone, we do max out at 1080p. But keep in mind, most phones in this price range, or at least the new ones, unfortunately can't record in 4K. So if you do want that feature in a newer phone, you will have to spend a little bit more and get a slightly higher end device, like for example the A23 5G. But that being said, another option if you really want to be able to record in 4K, but you still want to stay within this $300 price range, is getting a slightly older phone, like for example a Samsung Galaxy S10, if I can remember right off the top of my head. You can get that phone on Amazon for less than $200. So if you are more of a content creator and you do want the ability to record higher quality 4K videos, but you still don't want to spend a whole lot more than this, then I would definitely consider something like that. And finally, my seventh reason why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is because it doesn't have stereo audio. Now in case you don't know what that means, when a phone has stereo audio, sound is going to be coming out of both the main speaker and the earpiece. So when you're doing something like watching a video, playing a game, something like that, you're going to get a more immersive experience and things are just going to sound better. But unfortunately with this phone, audio is only going to be coming out of the main speaker. So if you're consuming content without headphones, it's not going to sound nearly as good as a lot of other phones. Now on one hand, this may not be a big deal to everyone because some people never use their phone without headphones or an external speaker, but I know for me personally, there are lots of times when I like to just watch a video on YouTube without actually having to plug anything in, and having a phone with a good quality speaker definitely gives you a lot more flexibility when you're consuming content. So in general, if you are looking for a phone that has stereo audio, and you do like to consume content without headphones from time to time, then keep in mind, unfortunately again, this phone does not have stereo audio, so it's not going to sound nearly as good as a lot of other devices. But those were my reasons why you might not want the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G. In general, despite these drawbacks, most of them being pretty minor, I do think the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is a great device that, especially considering the current carrier deals going on, which I will be linking to in the video description, does provide quite a bit of value for the money. So if you're looking for a solid mid-range 5G phone that has great performance, a really good display, a good camera setup, a large battery, and a lot of nice features, then I do think the Samsung Galaxy A23 5G is still worth considering. Now that being said, if you want to learn more about this phone, I will be linking to several other videos about it in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.